All right, guys, today we're in Des Moines, Iowa. We're at Pickard Park, and the front nine's gonna be on Gatekeeper's channel, and the back nine's gonna be on my channel. Hopefully you've been enjoying the content. I'm enjoying giving you an insight, what goes through my head when I'm dissecting these courses on tour. All right, hole one looks like we got a little bit of a crosswind. So it's kind of a type of shot where you're just kind of picking a spot in the air, way out over the right side OB and kind of just throwing it high. The higher you throw it, obviously the farther back left it's gonna fade. So I'm just gonna throw a nice high shot to the right, just like that. So it's gonna go out over the OB and doesn't really have a chance to go out of bounds. So just kind of keep it easy and simple. Try one more. I'm kind of just aiming at that tree. I pick a spot way down the fairway that I try to aim at. So that one's a little bit too wide. It might be OB, but it might also be all right. Okay, that's good. So that one was a little bit wider than I would want. But yeah, this is, I appreciate you guys watching these. This has been really fun to be able to, just kind of share some knowledge with you guys on how I dissect the courses and why I throw each shot. There's a reason why I throw certain angles and why I just try to throw the high percentage shot at every hole, whether it's a forehand, a backhand, and like you'll hear me talk about, the one angle shots. Those are the most consistent. If you can do that, so I'm just looking for the highest percentage shot. Thank you guys for joining. Thanks to Gatekeeper for filming these, and hopefully we can keep them going for the rest of the season. All right, here's my first shot. We got a little bit of a right to left wind, so that's gonna keep my disc a little bit straighter. And I'm trying to just throw a little ante right over this tree right in the middle of the fairway. So that's kind of my aiming point. So I know it's about 350 to 400 feet, so I'm trying to throw about that distance and then focus on my line being over top of that tree. So I threw a little wide, as you can see, pulled it a little bit, but it should be all right. A little wide. Let me try one more. So this side slope's kind of really messing with me. It's kind of like my body's really off balance. So I just really need to focus on keeping my balance through the shot and hitting my line. So that was a lot better. Over top of that tree, like I told you, should be up there for a putt. Yeah, so now that's a lot better. I like to tell people when I'm just showing them shots that I'm throwing is picking a spot that if your disc is flying over this tree with a little bit of turn, by the time it gets up by the basket, it's gonna fade back. And so picking spots in the air, picking spots in the fairway where you wanna go over a tree at certain angles, that just helps your brain throw the shot and envision the shot a little easier. This would be the more safe shot. Obviously I'm pretty far away, and this is my first round back since last year, so I'm still going through the learning curve, and you can see the difference between my first and second shot. And then each round throughout the week, I'll probably get steadily better at dialing in this second shot. Oh, I like to practice long putts like this too, because it just helps kind of get that wrist dialed in and get that spin. And then my second one is inside the circle. So big difference between making the adjustment, and then my second round tomorrow will probably be a lot better. And you guys always see me putting on the baskets. It's like, I'm always trying to just get every wind dialed in on each side of the basket. So I'll go to this headwind side, then I'll go to the tailwind side, putt a couple from there. So that way, no matter which side of the basket I'm comfortable when the tournament comes, whether, like I said, whether it's tailwind, whether it's crosswind, I can kind of see what my putter does before I actually get to the tournament. So, see, my putt dropped a little bit. So now if I get in the tournament, I know, hey, I got to aim a little higher if I got a headwind in the tournament. So I'll do a couple more and kind of change my aiming point a little bit, because I know we got a headwind and my putt naturally drops into a headwind. So see, a little higher, there we go. A lot better. Bam. So now if I have a 25, 30 foot headwind putt, I know how that feels to make that. So that's what I'm thinking about when I'm on the putting green. All right, 750 foot par 4, hole 2. It's basically, you want to throw, I would say 450 to 500 foot hyzer down the hill to the point A landing zone, and then the second shot's more than likely going to be a sidearm. So we got a headwind. I'll kind of just show you guys, walk you through all the things that I'm dealing with on this hole. We got a headwind, so the disc is naturally going to want to keep a little bit straighter, which is okay, but you really want to kind of hug that tree line on it, and so that way your second shot could be a little easier. I'm really trying to go over top of that tee pad with like a pushing hyzer that kind of finishes at the end. So I'm gonna throw an enforcer and get this, hopefully my aiming point's gonna be over top of that tee pad and then fade back kind of towards the camera guy down there at the end. So let's see if we can do that. So a little bit wide. I went a little bit wide of the tee pad, but that's still gonna be okay. So I kind of went right at the camera guy. That one got pushed a little bit further to the right than I thought. So the second one, I'm gonna cut a little bit tighter and see if I can't get cut off a little bit more distance to make my second shot easier. So I'll kind of show you guys, hopefully on this one, if I can shorten the hole up. Oh, hit that tree. That shot sucks to throw right now. It's almost in a weird way in my head. I'm kind of glad I did that because now that I'm practicing, it doesn't matter. But when I get to the tournament, I can kind of calculate that and say, hey, that limb is kind of in the way, so I can kind of change my shot up a little bit. So now I'm gonna throw my shot a little bit lower just to keep that limb that I hit out of the way. So it's not always a bad thing to throw a bad shot. You kind of learn from it and can make the adjustment coming into the tournament. So I'm gonna throw lower. That wind just keeping them straight. So I almost went OB long, but that's okay. I still have a second shot from there. When you make a mistake, it's gonna happen. You're gonna make a mistake. Learn from it. Say, hey, all right, I did that and I don't wanna do that. So how can I change my form, change my, let's say I threw it too high. So maybe next time I get on that hole, I'm gonna lean down a little bit and to bend my knees to get that lower release point. So that's something that's kind of going through my head for the next round when I play this hole. We got a little bit of a right to left sloping hill. So I'm gonna throw a sidearm to kind of come into the hill and just stick. And it kind of land, I just like the landing for a forehand into the hill better. I'm gonna feel like I'm throwing it into the wood line. And once it gets to the wood line, it's just gonna kind of fade off of that. So throw a nice forehand. I'm gonna throw a felon here, orbit felon. So that feels pretty much perfect. I should have a chance to go in maybe even. All right, see how that just kind of stuck? So that's why I throw the forehand. And the grass is pretty long here, so you're not gonna get much skip. So it's kind of like what we call lawn darts, because you wanna throw it high and just kind of let it stick. There's no, if you hit 30, 40 feet short, you're not gonna skip up to the basket. So that's the kind of stuff you gotta pay attention to on a course like this, is the ground play, which means you gotta throw your shots higher because they're not gonna skip and they're just gonna stick, which you can use that to your advantage as long as you can play a couple practice rounds and kind of dial in the speed of the greens, because that does make a difference. So there we go. Got the birdie on this hole. Hole 3, 320 foot par 3. We got OB deep, we got OB to the right, and we got a tricky fairway to navigate. We're kind of throwing a forehand. I'm gonna be throwing a forehand into that mulch, just trying to get like a straight skip out into where that grass area is. So I'm really just trying to throw a forehand hyzer. A lot of times when it's hyzering, you'll get a straight skip instead of a skip to the right. And so I kind of know that going into this hole, so I know I can throw a little more hyzer on it, knowing my disc is probably gonna skip straight. So I'm gonna kind of throw a shot into the mulch area and just try to get a trickle out there into somewhere into that green grass. Oh, I hit the tree. That was gonna be money, but I just clipped that last tree. But I'm gonna try to throw it a little bit tighter, maybe try to challenge this right tree and try to get a little bit tighter, because that might be a better line. There we go, like that. I like that a lot. That's gonna be perfect. Yeah, see that hit this mulch and skipped? I got about a 30 footer from there. That's a better line. All right, so this is where my kind of bad kick went. Now we got a death putt. So when I have a death putt like this in the tournament, I can still run it. I just don't want to be running it and having a bunch of steam. Once I get down by the basket, I just kind of want to fade. All right, that one went in the water. Good thing we're in a practice round. But now I'm going to change my speed up a little bit. See how I missed that, but it was a lot softer. If I would have missed, or if I would have been chain high, it still would have been short of the water. I think that one still went in. So I know that I can't really run this putt if I want to make it, because if I miss it, then it's going to be in the water. But second one, as you can see, this mulch pile, all this mulch here is a good place to skip. And this one ended up being 20 footer. So I know I just need to throw it tighter on this hole next time I play. All right, so that last hole, I threw a couple putts in the water, and obviously I never want to do that, but at least I learned from it, and I realized, hey, if I'm 80 feet away on that basket, I can't really run it chain high because I have the potential to go in the water. So I learned that, and now if I'm in the tournament, I take that knowledge and say, hey, I'm gonna play smart and play for the par instead of trying to be aggressive. So, all right, let's see here. Hole 4, 472 foot par 3. This is a signature hole out here, and it's a crush. We got water almost the entire way in front of the basket, and we got a big headwind, which makes this hole a lot harder. I think this hole is the shot changes so much based on the wind. So if there's no wind, I'm kind of pumping a hyzer out over the water and fading back. Whereas right now, I feel like I'm gonna have to bring in an Annie, kind of aim at this tree and let the wind kind of drift it back towards the basket. So I'm more of a straight at it approach instead of a hyzer. So let's see how this works. That looks great, actually. I love it. So that's friggin' really good shot. As you saw, I had to throw kind of a hyzer flip. That was a Raider. They just kind of turn, and then landed inside the circle. Whereas if there's no wind, I can just kind of blast a hyzer almost towards those flags and let it kind of fade out to 30 or 40 feet safe. So that's kind of how I'm playing this hole based on the wind. Oh, we got a drop zone here. It looks like we got a different drop zone from last year. Last year we had like a 40, 50 foot death putt. Now we got a little bit of a kind of a putter shot. I like to practice the drop zones. Not that I plan on going there, but if I do, I have a little bit of a feel for how far it is. So I'm gonna throw a couple shots here just to kind of dial it in and see what kind of distance we got. So I'm just throwing nice, soft, smooth daggers and see if we can make it. Oh, so close. That's gotta be in. Oh, in the water. Oh my God. But yeah, I like to just kind of get these shots dialed so that way if I do happen to go OB, I feel comfortable getting up and down from the drop zone and minimizing my damage to a bogey instead of maybe not being comfortable from there and getting a double bogey. All right, here's my drive. It's a great drive, about 20 feet short. And so yeah, I'm gonna try to see if I can birdie this hole. So what do we got here? A little bit of a crosswind, so I'm paying attention to that. My putt, when I putt into a left to right cross, it likes to drop. So I'm gonna aim a little bit higher than I normally would and let the wind kind of drop it. So there we go. Try one more. There we go. So I'm planning on the wind doing something and I'm aiming for it before I release my putt. So that way, and everyone's putt's different. Some people, their putt rises in a headwind. My putt kind of drops because I putt nose down. So it's gonna be different than some other people. So just going in the practice basket, challenging yourself, going all the different wind directions, seeing what your putt does. And then once you get that putt in the tournament, 20, 30 footer, you can say, hey, my putt likes to drop 6 or 8 inches in a headwind versus mine might drop or yours might rise. So that's all the stuff that I'm thinking about when I'm putting. So I'll put a couple more just from a little bit different wind spot. What do we got here? We got another crosswind. So I'm gonna aim a little bit higher because I'm farther away. So I'll just kind of let that wind kind of drop it, put it high and let the wind kind of drop it towards the end. So that's my wind putting advice for the day. All right, hole 5. We got a water carry. We got 330 feet and we got the hive. This is the hole where a bunch of people hang out and they're screaming, they're getting you to try and ace it. So it's definitely a mental test. You got to calm down, calm your nerves and try to give the crowd what they want and try to give them an ace. But this is definitely the type of hole where you want to take your most consistent shot, whether it's a smooth hyzer flip mid-range, or for me, it's a nice forehand. Whatever your highest percentage shot is, and that's what you should throw on this hole because it's kind of like a dealer's choice hole where you can throw whatever you want. And I'm gonna go with the forehand because that's what I'm most comfortable with. I'm just able to face my target, see my aiming point, which is kind of at those PDJ flags, and let my disc kind of fade at the end of its flight. So like I always talk about, it's gonna be a one angle shot where I keep it on hyzer and it ends on hyzer the whole time. So I'm nice and safe. I'm gonna try one more and just try to dial this one in a little bit more. I'll throw the same disc, I'm just gonna throw it a little bit wider and a little bit more penetrating forward. There we go, that's kind of better. Maybe go in, drop. Oh, flashed it. So that one, the difference between that one and the first two is I kind of penetrated towards the flags a little bit and then just knew my disc was gonna fade at the end. It's just confidence in your disc and confidence in the flight of your shot. Last year at this tournament, I think I missed this island every time. And it was very frustrating. I bogeyed it every time. Basically, if you miss the island, it's almost an automatic bogey unless you can hit like a 100-foot putt. So my goal this year, definitely hit the island and just give myself a chance for birdie. That's what it's all about out here. Because if you miss the drive, it's almost a 2-stroke penalty because a lot of the other top players are gonna be birdieing. So I've got a pretty awkward shot here let's take my meter. So I'm gonna kind of force to like almost do a standstill where it's just kind of focusing on my arm swing to get the height of the putt here. Really awkward. But it's good for me to practice this because I might have it in the tournament. And it's hard not to fall forward, so practice keeping your balance. So yeah, there we go. I know how to putt from this slope right here. So I'm gonna take a couple more putts from maybe this side of the green, just in case I happen to throw it a little bit straighter and don't get a little enough hyzer. A little bit of a crosswind. So I kind of just see how my putter flies once it gets up towards the basket. Looks like it flies straight into the basket. That's always good. Hole 6, we got a 633-foot par 4. Kind of got a smooth dog leg that kind of keeps bending right, and at the end it kind of cuts into a cove of trees on the right-hand side. So I'm gonna try a forehand on the first shot and then maybe try a backhand on the second shot. Just kind of see where my landing zones are, see which one I like better, and see which one's kind of higher percentage for me. That's what I'm looking for. So we got a headwind, and it's a forehand. Looks like it would be the shot, but unfortunately these limbs come out, which forces you to throw so much wider. And when you have a crosswind and you're already throwing wide, it's going to want to shove you OB. Versus the backhand, you can kind of come out and turn a little bit safer. So me first looking at it in this wind, I would probably throw a backhand if it was the tournament, but I'm going to kind of throw a forehand just to see if I can get into the landing zone that I want. So that's not bad. I like that. So that was pretty solid. I was able to go out hyzer into the field. That's gonna leave me about 350 to 400 feet. Now I'm gonna go ahead and try a backhand shot. All I'm gonna do is just try to throw a backhand flex, and then when I get up there, see where my positioning is. This is gonna be a felon. I'm not really trying to go for too much distance. As you can see, it's only 633. So if I throw it 350, I'm fine with that, 400 feet, something like that. Yeah. So that one looks great as well. So should be probably in the pretty similar spot as the sidearm. And I think the forehand's actually more consistent because it's just a one angle shot instead of the backhand's got a flex, turn, and then hyzer back. You're looking at 2 angles, which once you start throwing 2 angle shots, yeah, I can do it. And I'm fine with it, but it's a little bit less consistent. I would say it's about a 250-foot shot. I'm gonna throw my super overstable lucid felon. So that looks great. Oh, I didn't skip. So now it looks like I'm left with about 40 or 50 feet because that grass is not very skippy. And that's something definitely to keep note of. And that's kind of why I'm playing practice rounds early, so I can pay attention to that. Now this shot, what I'm gonna do differently is I'm gonna throw it higher because I know the grass doesn't skip. So I have to rely on the flight of the disc and not the skip off the ground to get to the basket. So see, that one's way higher. That should be way better. Yeah, so that one's, I would say 20 or 30 feet closer, just for the simple reason I threw it higher and didn't rely on the skip. The first one I kind of got Velcroed. I like to call it Velcro grass. And the second one, I didn't rely on the grass and I just kind of spiked it up there. And this is the backhand. So when you're throwing around the corner like that, at the end of its flight, this backhand wants to keep gliding, whereas the forehand just wants to kind of get to the ground. So this backhand is way easy to get up and down and get yourself a pretty easy 3. But the only problem is you can also turn too much and be over there, and that's kind of a tough spot to get a birdie from. So we'll kind of show you guys the green and show you why it's kind of important to throw a great tee shot on this hole. I did pretty much threw the exact shot I wanted. I just didn't realize this grass was so thick. So I'm left with, whereas normally in years past, this would be cut real thin and I'm skipping to the basket. But I'm gonna practice a couple from here because it's probably a pretty common spot to land, is if you throw it too low and don't skip. So And I'm sure my other one's probably inside the circle. Oh. And these putts, if you miss these putts, they definitely like to skip and roll, as you saw that first one kind of skipped and rolled into the bushes. So I'm gonna go take a couple par putts from up there and see where my second one landed. Yeah, my second one's right here. So a really good shot, a way higher percentage birdie from there. Take a couple par putts from here, because if I get aggressive on the birdie putt, this is probably where I'll be. All right, now I'm gonna go also take a couple putts from where my second shot is, now that once I knew that the grass didn't skip. So this is a pretty solid shot. This is a very common spot to land on this hole. It's hard to park it because of how far it is into this cove. So I love that. That's a nice high percentage birdie. I can handle that all day. All right, hole 7, 345 foot island hole with you got the wood perimeter around the island. If you missed the island, it's hazard, so you just play from where it went out of bounds. But we're not trying to land OB. My shot, I'm gonna throw kind of a baby flex out to the right of the basket, and since we got a right to left wind, I'm gonna let the wind kind of fade it back towards the end of its flight. And it looks like it would be a forehand shot, but this tree right off the tee here kind of is hard to really get an angle at a forehand. So that's why you might see some people still throw a forehand, but the players that like to flex a forehand, this tree definitely comes in the way, and I like to flex my forehands. So I'm just gonna go ahead and go with the backhand. So I'm gonna throw a felon. 345, I would say it plays about, it plays further than that. It probably plays about 370, 360. Oh, get up. Too low. So I threw that one just too low, and the ante angle, when you throw an ante into a crosswind, they almost always drop and just get smashed like that. So now I'm gonna throw the same shot, just not throw as much ante on it and hope I don't drop. There we go, that's way better. So I didn't throw as much ante, and that's gonna be on the green. So now you guys can see, now when I have this crosswind in the tournament, I know, hey, if I throw too much ante, it's just gonna get smashed. But if I throw just a touch of ante, it's gonna be able to keep gliding. So that's the kind of stuff I'm thinking about. It's a tough par save if you go OB, because it means you're obviously way outside the circle, and you got a windy uphill on an elevated basket to try to save par. That's why this is another hole that the drive is super important, because if you miss the drive, you're almost spotting the top player's 2 strokes right off the bat, because if your top player hits this green, more than likely they're gonna make the putt too. All right, hole 8, par 3, 580, downhill. We got a left to right wind, and we got a Raider that we're gonna throw. This hole actually is a pretty good hole for the top players. It's one of those holes where if you birdie it, you're gonna separate and more than likely get a stroke on a lot of people, because a lot of people just end up getting a par because it's a tricky drive. It's really hard to get this one close. I would say the ideal shot for me is gonna be over these hay bales, kind of gliding towards the woods where it looks like it's gonna almost go into the woods, and then let's say 450, 500 feet away, it kind of starts hyzering, and you get that little extra distance at the end to give it to, like, I would say 30, 40 feet is a good drive on this hole, and leaving yourself with a birdie chance. So we got a little bit of a left to right wind. We're just gonna wanna push it a little bit further towards that wood line, so I'm gonna have to put a little more hyzer on it to kind of counteract that crosswind. So over this hay bale and glide down there. Not bad, I just didn't get enough glide on it. So that's pretty short. I'm gonna try one more. There we go. That's way better. So that should be probably about 50 feet or so. Oh, hit the trees. All right. Kind of, I would say, like a tweener hole where you're not gonna see someone birdie this hole more than likely all 3 rounds. And like I said, if I can get this hole 1 or 2 times in the tournament, I'm happy. All right, so here's my first one. Kind of hyzered out a little bit too much, but we still got a long circle 2 putt. And the tough part about this green also is that it runs away from you, goes downhill. And so if you miss an air ball, you're gonna be gliding past, have a 30-foot comeback putt. But let's hope we don't do that. And if you do that, it doesn't roll away. Oh. Oh, we made the first one. We got the birdie on that hole, that's all that matters. All right, hole 9, par 3, 305 feet. That distance is a little deceiving because you're going straight uphill. It probably plays closer to 350. And you're throwing pretty much, you have to throw so nose up that by the time it gets to the basket, you're kind of just like coming backwards. So you really almost have to feel like you're throwing it past the basket if you want to get pin high. So that's the biggest thing about this hole, is focusing on trying to get the distance and the angle, because your disc is flying so far nose up that it just wants to fade back left. So you either got to throw more ante on it or throw a flippier disc, so that way it carries straighter for longer on this uphill par 3. So I'm gonna kind of throw it in this gap with a little bit of ante, and let it glide up there and then fade hopefully towards the end of its flight. So that one felt good. I think that's gonna be solid. Try one more. I almost wanna feel like I'm throwing a little bit further to the right with a little bit more glide. That feels better. See how it kind of just went straight? Because if you feel like you're going straight uphill, your disc is actually doing this, and then by the last like 50 feet, it's gonna wanna fade back left. So if you throw it too much hyzer, it's just gonna get away from you. As you can see how steep this hill is, your disc it's hard to get that much distance when your nose is up that much. So how you counter it is throwing a flippier disc, and then it's gonna fly the same as it would if you were to throw that disc on flat ground. First one OB, second one barely safe, and you saw the difference was not much, just a little bit flippier disc. All right, you guys, thanks for watching on Gatekeeper's channel. If you're liking the content, be sure to like and subscribe to their channel for future content. And if you want to watch the back nine, head over to my channel.